After a laundry list of nerfs, I think we're gonna have to check Doomfist's pulse, cause he's not looking so hot. But I will say the meta in general is in a much more exciting place. We're gonna talk about Doomfist and the meta as a whole, but before I forget, be sure to check the link in the description to Brandito's stream. We used all of his footage for today's video, but also our Doomfist Mastery Guide. Not gonna be as much Doomfist anymore, as he incorporates new heroes into his pool until a Doomfist buff may be coming. And I think we're bound to get one with how drastic that these nerfs set in. And to evaluate all this, let's do a bit of a post-mortem on Doomfist and how he ended up in quite a bad spot. In short, I think Doom needed the GOATS meta to be viable, because the problems that plagued Doomfist prior to that small pocket of time where he was good are starting to rear their ugly head again now that a bunch of other characters are viable options, with Brigitte being a bit worse. Specifically, let's think back to the dive meta, and the problem of even considering Doomfist over a character like Tracer. Doom's all in on his abilities, he's an easy hitbox. Sure, he packs a bigger punch, pun intended. His elusiveness is just way worse than the likes of Tracer or Genji, and because of that, well, Tracer can survive forever and poke you down and eventually get a burst with a pulse bomb, whereas Doom has to constantly go in headlong, risking his life at every opportunity. Now, that playstyle is obnoxious when it works too well, so it's understandable that they nerfed him, but at the same time, Doom needed Brigitte to be strong to make Tracer weak, so that there was a reason to bring that much high-risk, high-reward gameplay from the DPS slot. So now Doom's getting hit from two different ends, where I think GOATS is even weaker than I already thought it was, so in general, you don't even really need Doom to counter it, because you could play a number of other things. And then on top of that, a character like Tracer is coming back. Not to her be-all, end-all place in the meta, but she's definitely a serious problem that, unless you're playing GOATS, and even then, I think a 3 DPS with Tracer will still beat it now, but regardless, Tracer is seriously back. And with Doom losing his crowd control and some of his range, and lethality in a bunch of his moves, even the playstyle that I think you have to attempt to try to play him as now doesn't really make much sense, because committing really deep and landing your abilities really accurately has such a high failure rate that you probably shouldn't try to do that, and instead, most of the time go for really secure kills or control the enemy's front line. But because your crowd control is nerfed as well, even controlling the front line doesn't look that good. Other characters have better CC available to them, more reliably bust down tanks, or are more reliable at going at the back line. So with losing that as well, we have a pretty short list of matchups where Doom is just incredible against, and to some degree that can be okay if there was enough maps to warrant him looking like a viable option, but I'm not sure that there is. So the good news is I think Tracer is a viable pick yet again, but the bad news is we've over-nerfed Doomfist to the point that if they're playing him, you can just play something like Tracer and have way more reliable impact and still the burst impact that you were looking for with Doom. So what should we do about this? Well, my biggest issue with the nerfs is that unlike the changes to Pharah, where they looked at a character and said, something that this hero is doing is bad for the gameplay experience for certain levels of play or in specific interactions, so what we're going to do is make Pharah a more skill shot-oriented hero, where she'll be less effective if you're doing splash damage and more effective if you can hit direct rockets. In fact, now she'll be even better in a way, because we'll reduce the cooldown of Conch Blast and increase her rate of fire, which once you got used to, I think most people who are good at Pharah would say is an overall buff, although weaker in some ways and definitely weaker in the hands of a less skilled player. That's the type of thing that I would like to see always happen for characters, because otherwise we get the effect that we got with Doom, where his damage of Seismic Slam and his ultimate were reduced. The slam damage doesn't matter too much, I would say, but it's a component, and then his ult is basically useless now. In many cases, launching his enemies to safety from the knockback of the blast, which is not what you want, merely injuring them. And despite those offensive tools going down, there wasn't any buff to anything else that he does to make it more severe. Then also the knockback, which understandably is something that they wanted to remove from the game, almost in direct response to Siegel's video, saying that CC was annoying, which is something I think they knew for a long time. So I like that. I like that now Doomfist is a lot more skillful when he goes in, and you have to be a lot faster, a lot more accurate when you're knocking and bobbling characters into the air to hit your follow-up shots with hand cannon. But now, if you're not exactly perfect, you just get obliterated, losing the entire point of the hero. And then also the range of the slam being reduced seems kind of needless in my opinion. Yes, it allowed him to go some extreme ranges, but now, if you're just outside of that 15-meter range, even characters he's strong against, he can't even get on to fight without expending all of his cooldowns, then having no offense by the time he gets there. It's rough out here for a Doomfist player, I'm telling you. Now, I can see, perhaps in the right contexts, you could get Doomfist to work. We're still talking about the ability to essentially just jump in and one-shot something. The potential is still there. It's just that his entire character is based around his ability to do that, and with so many edges shaved down, even in a player that I would call incredible, the hero looks like wasted effort a lot of the time. So what can they buff then? Well, the issue is, Doomfist needs high sustain, slow characters to go fight to make his big bursts of damage be relevant. A lot of the masters of the character were able to break the rules that I just explained by being so good at his movement that they could go off and just take any duel at any time, essentially. But if you think about it, if we total all of the nerfs that Doomfist has had since his release, everything's been toned back. The range of his rocket punch, now his seismic slam, the size of the hitbox, and he eventually got a small time of relevancy when he had the combination of high CC and the shields buff that made him too durable in a meta where there was high sustain all over the place, making him more relevant anyway. So I could see two options. Either we go back and revert some of the lethality changes to make up for the fact that the CC is so dramatically worse, or they revert the mobility changes to like rocket punch distance or seismic slam, because the character now is all about rocket punch. It's the most reliable thing he does, which I think is okay and fair, but I don't just want straight damage buffs either. Maybe just the damage he used to have with slam and meteor strike would be fine, because otherwise then he starts to outshine other damage options as well. I just want him to be able to do the thing that he's trying to go do, and removing the CC is such a big thing that I don't think they also needed to do the 3 to 4 other things that they also did. Now, I think the Overwatch community has a perception that Blizzard won't revert changes ever, but I gotta tell you, I watched StarCraft 2 for a long time, and they reverted a ton of changes, knowing that that game is incredibly complicated, and I think Overwatch is just as complicated in a different way. I think most of the community understands that the crowd control had to go, but it was underestimated how big of a deal that was. Well, guys, let me know your thoughts on the state of Doomfist. Does he need buffs? What exactly should we look to help him out with? If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And be sure to subscribe for more and hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we'd love to interact with you. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.